Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome, everyone, to Give God 90. We are live. It's Thursday night. We're here.
We're here.
Even you're here.
Even I'm here.
You're vertical.
I'm vertical.
If you missed last week, she's been dealing with her diverticulitis, so she's not... How do I want to say this? You're not your usual self.
Right.
That's a good way to say it. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. My lovely wife, Myra, and actually, you are an inspiration for what we're going to talk about tonight.
Uh-oh.
Didn't have a whole lot of comments after last week. Usually throughout the week, I get some comments through for some things, but I actually did on the just the podcast part for the Spreaker audience the other day. Hi, Sean. Glad to see you.
Hi, Sean.
I had mentioned I actually concentrated on one word, hope, and someone actually, they sent a message and said, you need to do that with your beautiful wife. So that actually is what we're going to talk about tonight, is beauty in the Bible and beauty from a biblical perspective. We love you too, Sean. So as we get going tonight, what we're give people a chance to get kind of tuned in, see what's going on. And while we get in there, I want to thank everybody for all the great comments, all the likes, all the shares, all the everything. The new folks, don't forget you can download the Give God 90 app free for your Apple or Android device. Something I haven't mentioned before is I actually do link this to my YouTube account. So if you want to go to YouTube, you can actually listen to the audio on YouTube. Ain't that neat?
Yeah, it is.
So you didn't know I did that, did you?
I did.
Oh, okay. Just you sneaking around on me, ain't you? Okay. Was there anything else I was supposed to say? I don't know. Anyway, if there's anything else that comes up, I will just, off the top of my head, say where we're going. Anyway, hopefully we got some folks now. Chat is active on Spreaker for everyone who comes in that way. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm looking at two different screens here, so it's just kind of weird. All the technology we have.
I know.
It's, this house was built in 1895. It was not designed for this kind of technology, but yet here we are. It's small enough to fit in here. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
Okay. If I ask you to describe something beautiful, what would it be? Well, first of all, what would you describe? And it can't be me.
You said beautiful, not handsome.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
What would it be, and how would you describe it?
Depends on the day.
That's a good answer for you, believe it or not. Now, your favorite flower, I know, is an Edelweiss.
Yes.
Because, if you're not familiar with an Edelweiss, it only grows in the high alpine basins, and you're enamored with it for some reason, but you think it's a beautiful flower, right? How would you describe that beautiful flower? What makes it beautiful?
Well, partially the story behind it.
Okay.
Part of it is the fact that it's up on the really tall mountains up in the middle of nowhere. Nice rocky, you got beautiful views from those mountains. And the history of the Swiss Alps in Germany and Sweden, and I like those things.
Okay. So, but you wouldn't describe the flower the same way you might describe, I don't know, your granddaughter.
No, not normally, but
I know they have some of the same characteristics. All right. Which leads me to beauty in the Bible. When we say something's beautiful, we can say it's fair, we can say it's lovely, we can say it's this or that, right? Same way with Hebrew. When you go back into the Hebrew language and you start looking at the word beauty, you kind of come up with this concept like, what are they talking about and how did they get it? Because English only has one word but lots of adjectives. Hebrew has lots of words but not a whole lot of adjectives because it's such an active language. For instance, one of the first places we're going to find it, and I marked it in there, is Genesis 12, verse 11. And I don't remember which I got mine out of. So, verse 11.
just as he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarah his wife, "Look, please, I know that you are an attractive woman."
Okay. Some translations will have fair, some will have beautiful, some will have attractive, some will have some type of adjective that describes beauty, right? Mm-hmm. The word here that is in the Hebrew is yafeh. And it is typically going to be used to describe a person, or sometimes it describes a thing, but usually it's a living thing. You know, you wouldn't describe a rock formation as beautiful using that word. You wouldn't describe a sunrise as beautiful using that word. So there is one word that we have in Hebrew for beautiful, and a lot of times that's how people think of other people, right? They think, oh, isn't that person beautiful, whether it's inside or out?
Mm-hmm. True.
Now, this next one might throw everybody off just a little bit, and that's okay, because I realized as I was going through this, I'm going to have to add a little couple somethings to it to go through it with everyone. So, Deuteronomy 12:15. It's marked. Your next one is marked.
Okay.
Because they're going to understand that one a whole lot easier than they're going to understand the one I've got.
However, you may slaughter and eat meat within your gates, whatever your soul's desire, according to the blessing Adonai your God has given you. Either the
Keep going.
unclean or clean may eat of it, as they would a gazelle or a deer.
Yeah, did you hear the word beautiful, fair, lovely anywhere in there?
No.
You didn't read that word in there, did you?
No.
Actually, if you were reading it in Hebrew, you would. But before I get there, something we need to clarify, because a lot of times people get this confused. Because it says, what? It talks about eating unclean things, right?
Yes.
No, it doesn't.
Well, actually, no, the gazelle.
Nope. Because the clean or the unclean mentioned in this verse is not what is being eaten. It's the person doing the eating. It's talking about bringing the sacrifices and using the sacrifice or using the animals in the land where they're going as their sacrifices. And it says, even if you are unclean yourself, you can eat these animals, but only the ones you're allowed to eat, because they're the only ones that are going to be there, right?
Right.
Well, not the only ones going to be there, but they're the only ones you're allowed to eat. And it says, basically, don't think for a second that you're not worthy of being able to come to the Almighty just because you yourself are unclean. That's why He wants you to come, because that's part of the cleaning up process, inside and out.
Right.
So there we go. Don't think you have to be worthy to come. That's not it. You come to be worthy.
Right.
So wanted to make sure we straightened that out. Okay. Now the word we're going to be looking for, if you read this in Hebrew, is going to be zebi. And actually, I think you had it, gazelle?
Yes.
Now, why in the world would a gazelle be something of beauty in that situation?
For a number, well, I don't know about that. I could,
Okay. Zebi can be beauty, it can be honor. It's not just something you see. It's something that is. It has to be talking about a living being. It's something that, in this context, and we really don't do it justice here, but this is the first place it's used, and that's why I went to it. What we're looking at is the gazelle is a very noble, well, I don't want to say noble. It's a very beautiful to look at animal. It's very sleek, very, even for what I would consider a prairie goat, it's pretty. It's a pretty animal. Mm-hmm. But they're looking at this, even you can eat. If you're unclean yourself, if you're not worthy yourself, you can eat this animal. You because it meets all the criteria, right? You can take something that honorable, that beautiful, and you can consume it because you're worthy. And that's how the Almighty looks at you. You might not think you're worthy, but He says, yeah, you are. You can come up here and you can do this. Mm-hmm. That's part of that process. And that's where they get this whole concept. Now, I need to kind of stop and explain something. If the folks out here who are listening are stuck on one translation, please get over it. I know a lot of people are stuck on King James, and it has been around for a long time, right? It was not the first English translation. Tyndale did that. It wasn't even the second translation. What they call the Geneva Bible today falls in there second or third, and I'm not really sure which one. King James Bible was translated not out of the original language. The King James Bible was translated from a manuscript called the Textus Receptus, or the received text. So what you're reading is a translation of a translation. Now, if you're reading a translation that comes from the King James Bible, like New King James or one of those that followed after it, and it's based on King James, now you're getting a third-hand translation. So the farther you get away from the original, the more confusing it's going to get. And I know a lot of times we talk about word-for-word translation or idea for idea or concept for concept. You've got to use more than one because it's the only way you're going to understand this. And I was explaining the other night at Cynthia's Sukkot party that, excuse me, you've got to so often, because of the you're right, Sean. He says it's a game of telephone with Scripture. That's absolutely right. That's what's going on.
That's it.
But when you use the King James, a lot of times what you need is Webster's 1828 dictionary to go along with it, because our definitions have evolved, and they're changed dramatically. In some cases, the word wonderful, for instance, used to mean full of wonder, full of awe. Today it's just, oh, isn't that wonderful? Your earrings are they're just wonderful. No, there's actually not too far from here was Fort Delaware, Peapatch Island. It was a fort in the Civil War used to house used to imprison Confederate soldiers. And one of the doctors up there was seeing all the diseases that these Confederate soldiers were coming up with, and he says, "Isn't it wonderful? All of the diseases that they're bringing with them." We read that today. We're like, is this guy sadistic or what? But back then, he was saying, no, it's great. Look at everything I have the opportunity to now study and work with as a doctor. He thought it was great. He actually gets an opportunity now to put into practice, hands-on practice, what he's only been reading about in his journals. Not his journals, but in the textbooks. Mm-hmm. So the language has evolved, but we don't want to get stuck with one translation, because if you get stuck with one translation, you get stuck. And that's where we get a lot of mixed up doctrine, just like Sean said. It's a game of telephone, where you whisper in somebody's ear and it goes around, and by the time you get to about the fourth person, it no longer resembles what the first person said. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like gossip. Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of like gossip. All right. Let's keep going, because this only gets better. From here on out, it only gets better. I got to get something to drink, because this might be cut short a little bit because my throat's kind of scratchy for some reason. Psalm 93:5 says that your testimonies are very sure. Holiness befits your house, Yehovah, for endless days. Where's beauty in that? But there are translations out there that translate the word befits as beautifies, adorns, that kind of concept. But the Strong's word 4998, na'ah, means to be befitting. So, there are translations out there that are trying to keep it as original as possible. And if you can find one that comes directly from the Hebrew without going through anything else, those are the better ones to use. Exodus 28:2. You are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron, for splendor and for beauty. And of course, here we see the word beauty right off, and it's tifrah, beauty, glory. And these are only a few of the words that mean beauty. They're glorious. There are certain words that combine beauty with majesty, beauty and multitudes. Like, isn't that a beautiful flock of sheep? Means many, mm-hmm. Right? So there's words out there that do that, and I didn't want to get into an in-depth word study on this, because when we think about it in English, we describe a lot of things as beautiful, whether they're flowers or people or actions or attitudes, sunrises and sunsets. Some people find beauty in manufactured things too. We were the other day where there were a lot of old cars. Mm-hmm. And man, they polished these things up, and they got them shined up, and the hoods are open so you can see the engine. A lot of people like looking at those engines, and they say, "Isn't that, man? That's just great." They like looking at the transmissions under these cars, and what do you got under there? How fast will it go? Did this do that? But there's other people, they're not concerned about the outside of those engines. For them, the beauty is in the way it functions. For them, the beauty is in being able to take that thing apart and look at these pieces and see just exactly how they're working, how they're rubbing together, and putting it all back together and making it better than it was when they took it apart. Mm-hmm. That they find beauty in the function. There are people who find beauty in the function of buildings. An architect, hopefully, if he's going to design a building, hopes it's beautiful when he's done with it. Not just appealing to the eye, but that it functions flawlessly. And a building is not just, concrete and steel and wood and plaster and drywall and that kind of stuff. A building has systems designed in it. You have the heating system, the cooling system. You have the plumbing, which means you have hot and cold running water. You have drain water. You have, airflow. Even in the plumbing sometimes, where you have to force certain things certain ways because it's very difficult in our modern times. Gravity's hard to overcome when it comes to water, but sometimes it has to go up before it goes down. Just saying. Seen one of those buildings one time. It wasn't fun. They kept redesigning and trying to get things to work and get things to work. Didn't work that good. But people find beauty in some of the strangest things. Hopefully, many of the people who are listening to us are going to be finding beauty in the Bible itself. In the words of the Creator. There is a lot of things there that you can find beautiful in that. And it's beautiful to the point, and I just looked this up a little while ago because I was having trouble remembering his name. Professor Jordan Peterson. Doesn't really matter that you remember his name, but you should remember what he said. He said that the Bible is a hyperlinked text. I believe he said it was the first hyperlinked text. You know what a hyperlink is, right? Okay. On a computer, for the folks who don't know, when you're on a computer or on your phone, when all the other words are typically in black and you have a group of words in blue, that's called a hyperlink, and you click on that and it takes you somewhere else where it has to do with what they're talking about. Jordan Peterson said the Bible is a hyperlinked text. In all of the Bible, there are over 63,779 cross-references.
Wow.
Now,
that's intense.
From Genesis to Revelation, and I'll be honest, I think most of them are in Revelation because it keeps putting you back to Genesis.
Back to Genesis, yes.
But from Genesis to Revelation and all places in between, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was closer to 65,000 of these things. Hi, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
But when he said the Bible's a hyperlinked text, you think almost over 63, well, it's close enough to say 64,000 hyperlinks, cross-references. That means like every other word, you can go find what they're talking about somewhere else. So everything we do there is just beautiful because it all comes back. I've said before that the Old Testament looks for the Messiah. They're looking forward. And what the New Testament does primarily is it points back to the Creator. So you've got all this going on. And in all of this that's going on, even in the prophets, even in Paul's letters, you can take this piece here and put it here. You can take this piece here because he got it from here. And it just hyperlinks back and forth all over the place. That is the kind of beauty. If you like books, if you like words, if you like language, if you find beauty in the function of the Bible, you're going to find it there. If you're one of these people who finds beauty in function, you're going to find it in the Bible. If you're one of these people who find beauty in poetry, you're going to find it in the Bible. If you're one of these people who find beauty in instruction, how you do things, it's right there. If you're somebody who finds beauty in reading about people's actions when they do something heroic, when they do something wonderful, it's there. If you're one, it doesn't matter what type of person you are. If you're looking for something beautiful to read, you're going to find it in the Bible. Sean and I were talking to a pastor not too long ago. It was at just after his mother's funeral, and we were talking about people get bored reading the Bible. Like, how do you get bored reading the Bible? It's full of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You know, it really is
It
because,
is.
you know, there's murder, mayhem, mystery, you name it, it's in there. You know, along with all the love stories, along with all the salvation stories, along with all the other things, it's in there. And it's all lessons for us to learn from.
Yes.
So, when we think about beauty from a biblical perspective, one of the things that we really should remember is beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder. And it's far more than skin deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know when I was growing up that the saying in school was beauty's only skin deep, but ugly goes all the way to the bone. I don't think ugly goes all the way to the bone. Sometimes I think it comes from the bone out.
Sometimes.
I think it really does. Because there are some people
We're just ugly.
who are just ugly from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
They just, you know, they're just miserable folks. And it's sad that they're like that. And I think part of the reason they're sad that they're like, I think part of the reason that they're like that is because they haven't found the beauty that's in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they look at the world and they say, oh, you know, it's Monday, I got to go to work. They don't look at the world and say, you know what? God made this day. It belongs to Him. I will rejoice and be glad in it. So, where was I going with that? When I started that, I got sidetracked.
You did.
And you let me.
I did.
You know, I think you helped push the train off the rail.
Maybe.
Anyway, when we look and read the Bible for more than what it is, and we understand that we've got to use more than one translation to really get a grasp on what it's saying, then we can start to understand that no other, I hate to call it simply a work of literature and history, but there's no other book that you can read it, and once you understand the original language for it, you begin to see levels. You begin to see, well, this is what they're talking about here, and here's something that they're pointing to, and there's something over there that they're pointing to, and oh, by the way, if I follow this hyperlink, now I've got to go over here and I can read how it all connects and fits together. And some people, like the old Sadducees used to be, you know, they like things spelled out in black and white. They just want you to say, you know, they would have been really happy if God would have said, just do this, you know, whatever this might have been. They didn't like the freedom that they had, you know, got a short list of things we don't do. Got a short list of things we don't do. What can we do? Got a short list of things we don't do, but you know, and they concentrate on the things they don't do, but they forget about all the freedom that they have to go do the things that they're not told not to do, or that they're told not to do. Mm-hmm. Did I say that right?
No.
They concentrate on the things they're told not to do, but they don't look at all the freedom that they have
For the things
that they can do. Is that better?
I think so, yes.
Okay. I hope y'all understood that, because that's kind of a hard way to think about this. Don't
do the...
Just don't do the things you're told not
right.
to do, and then you're free to go do all the good you can.
Yes. It's easy.
It's not that hard. Simple. You know?
You just have to obey the instructions of the don't do.
Yeah, you should have told 2 different people on 2 different occasions. Just go and sin no more. Like, yeah, just don't
go.
do it.
Just don't do it.
It's okay. Just don't do it. Not a big deal. You know, it's possible. If it's that easy, why do we get hung up on the stuff we ain't supposed to do? Ain't supposed to do. That's real good English. Aren't supposed to do. I'm trying, folks. All right. So hopefully, if you get nothing more out of this, then don't get stuck on one translation. Mm-hmm. And when you read the Bible, read it for the excitement and the beauty that you're going to find there.
And don't read things into it.
Don't read things into it.
Mm-mm.
You know, it is what it is. And, you know, in my books, I think it's in both of them where I tell you, you know, don't read with the filters of your denomination.
Mm-hmm. Turn all the outside annoyances and teachings out of your head.
You know,
and read it for what it says.
You're more than welcome. When you read the Bible with all of those preconceived ideas because you just know what it says, you're going to be in trouble. And you're going to see things that aren't there, and it's going to take you places you don't want to go. Let it speak to you, because God's really good at giving advice and he's really bad at taking it. Okay?
Yeah, he is.
As long as we figure out he's the one that's giving the instructions and we're the ones following the instructions, he's the one giving the advice, we should be following his advice. You know, we call Yeshua the great physician, right?
Right.
But you're not willing to take his prescription.
Right.
Something to think about there. So when you read, don't block yourself in with these blinders. Don't get stuck in a single translation. You know, I don't know how many different ones I have, and on my computer I've got more than that. I know when I looked it up, Wikipedia said there was over 90 different English translations of the Bible. It doesn't tell you how many there is, but they give you a list and you have to count them. I counted them. And I know out of that, I know it's a short list because I know of 2 more translations that are in the works, that are being worked on currently. So, you know, there's a lot out there to choose from. And, you know, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go back to the original language. You don't have to speak it. It just takes a working knowledge. That's what I was going to talk about. I was going to give Crossroad Church a little plug for giving Joni and Pam a venue to teach their Hebrew class. There was almost 40 in little old slower lower Delaware. There was just about 40 people at Crossroad Church last Monday night who were either interested or just curious.
Right.
But I think the most of them wound up being interested.
I think they did.
They were willing and wanting to figure out how this language can benefit their interpretation of the Bible, the way they read the Bible. And it can. It absolutely can. But when you think about just in that little bit, you know, their little meeting room that they had set aside was full.
We kept setting up tables and more chairs and more tables.
So there was almost 40 people in that room.
A lot more there than had signed up, which is just an answer to prayer.
A big thank you to Crossroad Church for that, giving them that opportunity.
And Pam and Joan for teaching that.
Yes, absolutely. So on that, that's about all I'm glad I remembered that, because I wanted to, you know, they're not paying for that sponsorship, you know, but it's worth it to give them a plug for what they're doing. So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have. Did you have anything else you wanted to add? No?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I did get a couple of messages this week saying that they wished you were feeling better, and at least you're vertical. You're not as peaked as you usually are at this point in your illness. But
no, I'm not. So
that's a good thing.
Big answer to prayers. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. We certainly do appreciate everything, your support, your likes, your shares, all the good stuff that you do for us, you know, especially the prayers. And like I keep trying to tell people, my agenda simply is to get you to live the way that your Creator designed you to live. If you'll do that, there is not enough spaces on a calculator to count our blessings. Till next week, folks, we thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a blessed week. Plus, they couldn't get it. There was a new person that chimed in tonight.
Joan. Who's Joan?